on it. It's great. There we go. All right.
Okay. Bill, just for anyone listening out there, let's talk about your strangest cases. Because I remember going out with you, what was it, 5 years ago
Yeah.
when we went to Queens. There was a guy in his 50s who, from the age of 3 months on the operating table, he was possessed. He was throwing himself on the floor. He lived with his sister. Remember that?
Yeah.
And that was one of
That was pretty strange, but Michelle was probably the
no,
strangest.
Michelle. Yeah, Michelle. Michelle was a girl. She was
Young
about
girl.
at 14 or 12. She was raped and
Yeah, I mean,
And,
a lot of that kind of trauma, but she was also a heavy drinker and had been
Yeah.
drunk constantly for, I don't know, 18 years by the time we saw her.
Yeah.
And she was loaded with many entities because she would drink till she passed out, and it just opens the door. And once a few entities get in there, it just, they get them all. She was loaded. If you wanted to count, I mean, there's probably hundreds, but
and she had slept with thousands of guys.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
night she was with
So-
a different. From
yeah,
the
that's
age
how
of
she.
14.
Yeah, that's how she would get her bar bill paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very sad case.
But talk about that entity that took her over. Jason or something.
Yeah, but he was with her for a long time, and there is a hierarchy I found of the dark entities, DFEs they call them, dark force entities, and the ones who are higher up in the rating got big egos, or most of them do. So they're very proud of their conquests and the souls that they've taken over, and they do rule a bunch of lower dark entities. The higher they are, the harder it is to convince them to go to the light because they're having a good time. I don't know if you call it the life, their existence that they do have is one of tormenting, and supposedly they get a reward of more power, more souls. And so it's a long negotiation session, those are. Sometimes they'll go on for many sessions. But mostly I can, or we, I mean, I'm never alone, can convince them to feel the light, to understand the light, and they do have a choice. My experience, the old story of that these are fallen angels seems to hold true, because I asked them to go back when they were first created. They have a memory, they do have a consciousness that will go back to when they were first created, and they do realize that they are a child of the light. That's what they came from. And at some point, they made the wrong decision or followed the wrong leader, and they ended up going to the dark side. It works in convincing them to feel the light, to remember the light, and that they are a child of the light. And when they focus on that light deep inside of themselves, it expands, and then they start to get transformed. And it's at that point that they can realize that they are a child of the light, and I have other light beings talk to them, communicate to them that they can be welcomed back home, that they will be forgiven. A lot of them are very afraid to go to the light. They think it's going to kill them, destroy them. But eventually you get them to feel the light, to understand it. And you say, how does it really feel? It feels good, it feels warm. When was the last time you felt that way? Never. So it's interesting, and if you get a higher level dark force entity, you ask when it goes to the light to take all of those under its control with them. And sometimes I've asked, how many go with you? And they say legions, which is an awful lot. And they're all going to the light. And the client then has so much relief. Many times they start crying when, the relief that knowing that they're finally gone.
And the life changes are pretty. I had a 40-year-old
Yeah, they're
country
very
singer
dramatic. Yeah.
who was well documented. She lived with her lover, was female. She slept with a lot of women on the road when she was out there. But a few days after the session, I think you might have been involved with that. She called up and she said, John, I no longer have the anger, but I'm no longer attracted to women anymore.
Oh, yeah, the entities can bring their tendencies with them for drugs, alcohol, sexual orientation. Um, and it's a dramatic how do people change when you release the negative entities and all the others that are there. Like I said, there's usually more than one.
It's like a social drinker will become a hardcore alcoholic overnight.
Yeah, because a social drinker just opens the door, and they're attracted to that sympathetic vibration. The alcohol.
The same thing when an alcoholic enters the enters. A normally bright person may be dull or confused.
Well,
or bouts of no memory.
Well, they will, because especially if at the time of death the entity was drunk or drugged, they'll carry that stupor with them.
I think the strangest one we did together was a 20-year-old girl from Philly who the Rastafarian entered. And she was abandoned on the street. She was a prostitute. She was very simple-minded. But all of a sudden her IQ zoomed up 100 points and she was talking like a hip Rastafarian. Remember I called you up your date that night? And you came in and...
it's interesting. It can be scary at times because you don't know what you're going to get. But as long as you believe and you know that the light is stronger than the dark. And it's all done out of love. I mean, the entity is there. They're confused, especially if it's another soul. Many times they're confused and angry. Many times they were murdered. So they have all this anger and they don't know what to do with it. And also many times they don't know they're dead. When I have people go back to remember they had their own physical body, and it says, well, I got one. It happens to be this one. It doesn't ring clear to them, but I just tell them to trust me, remember back when you had your own physical body, go right to the end. Float up out of your body and look down, what do you see? And then they see either gunshot wound or the stabbing or the accident, get hit by a car many times, and they don't go to the light. And actually, if you got them going that way, if they're following you that long, it's just say, this time you're going to see the light. And there's always somebody in the light to help us over. Who's there in the light for you? And somebody will be there. Their mother, wife, children, somebody will come over.
Have you noticed that they've, like the one girl we talked about, the 20-year-old, when we called her 3 months later, we talked to the end because she never got back to us. Basically, that whole 6-month period where she was possessed with this, she just slipped,
blanked out,
blanked it out.
Because she wasn't there. Her actual consciousness was in the background. When you get a strong entity like that, either if it's an old soul, a physical soul, or a dark force entity, when they take over, the consciousness is in the background, sometimes watching, sometimes just out of it. And you can tell those people when they're not in control, when their mood shifts so dramatically, that their family tells them that they don't know who they are anymore. That happens a lot with teenagers. They're experimenting, they're trying drugs, or they're drinking until they're drunk because that's what's cool, and they just open the door. Actually, the Ouija board is just terrible. Many of the clients come in, they were using the Ouija board, they open the door, they ask to talk to a spirit. Well, they get some spirits, but not necessarily the best for them.
And some people think this is strange, but actually the Catholic Church has a minister of exorcisms, which they do. There's a great Discovery Channel show where the Protestant and the Catholic Church, they had feuds over who had the best exorcist. So a lot of people say they may not believe in this, but they say, I'm a good Catholic, I'm a good Protestant, or whatever, and yet, hey, read the book.
No, they do it because, Christ, that's how he did most of his healings. Casting out the evil spirits or something. We don't just cast them out because they'll come right back or they'll go to somebody else. We transition them up into the light, bring them to the light. Like I said, it's all done out of love and healing. And we get our team on the other side, which is, I ask for spirits of the light who do the healing work of the discarnate entities, whatever you want to call them, these lost souls. And more books are being written about it, and I think it's becoming more and more accepted or understood or as part of reality. That's all it is. Because, like I said, many of my clients have had these attachments from past lifetimes. They have karma that they're dealing with. Many times the entity was killed by this one, is his anger, so he's going on this one. So each lifetime they're killing each other. So my job to have them break that karma and help them understand it, that it's not doing them any good, that it's time to stop it. And just go to the light and let it go.
Well, thanks, Bill.
Okay.
You can find more about Bill at spiritdepossession.com. And
Yeah.
what other sites do you have
No,
up there?
that's it.
That's it.
Shoot.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.